Hey guys, welcome back to week 3, and this is a big one because in the power rankings, this is an undefeated team. Really respect the player, one of the deadly Norwegians. Okay, Magnus. All right, so the Houston Hacks taking on Magnus this week. Magnus and the San Francisco Garchomp. Super talented player, very, very clever in his preparation and team building. So we know we're going to have to really bring it this week and spend time trying to thinking about all of the possible combinations that he could bring. All right, so let's take a look at the matchup real quick. Initially looking at the matchup, first off, just remember that Dottler is actually Gloom. Okay, Gloom is, I believe, a 40 base speed. And as bad as Gloom does seem, because it is not fully evolved, Evolite is actually really, really good on it. And that's actually what I decided to bring is Gloom. And we'll see why, because you look at his tier 1 mons. For some reason, they're not ordered by speed. Usually, I almost always do speed. But his tier 1 mons are actually Sylveon, probably the best fairy in the game. But I mean, look at my team. The only thing that can take a fairy move is Arcanine, and I didn't really like Arcanine's matchup a ton. I didn't mind it. I thought Extreme Speed was actually really nice. But with the combination of Toxapex, which I could bring Wild Charge for, Bronzong, which I did think a little bit about Heat Proof. I actually thought Heat Proof made a lot of sense because I didn't think I have a great offensive ground type. And actually, he winds up bringing Heat Proof Bronzong, which is pretty clever. It just helped me out because I'm kind of rambling now, but what wound up happening is I brought spikes on Mew. So let's just keep looking through his team, looking at threats. Okay, Poltergeist, major threat, able to set up. Luckily, I have a very underrated, very good ghost type in Deblade. Deblade, Shadow Sneak does, I believe, like 70 to 80% to Poltergeist, assuming that there's no HP or defense investment. So I knew I just needed to attack Poltergeist whenever I got in. And so I made sure all my Pokemon had something to hit Poltergeist. Okay, none of them were completely walled. I couldn't allow it to set up by it for free. But I also have quite a decent team against it. Grimmsnarl has priority against it. It's not very fast, and I have a couple of hard-hitting Mons, and Jolteon has literally no coverage, but it does get Shadow Ball, so that really does help it. I thought Eldegoss made a lot of sense. It's his only spinner. Spin. I usually, when I write in my notebook, I usually have little icons for everything that I write just for fun. I knew this was rocks down here. I was a little bit worried about Exceligor bringing hazard stacking me right away, but not super concerned that I would change up my strategy a ton. I knew looking at Jolteon could put in a lot of work because it was faster than everything and able to hopefully clean the game in the end, assuming that Exceligor wasn't available. And with the electric coverage, I just needed to get by Raichu and its Volt Absorb and Flygon. I thought at least one would come between Raichu and Flygon, but actually both came. So, and that happened in prep as well. Both major threats. Actually, Flygon is honestly, looking at this page, probably the most underrated mon on the page, besides potentially Pingoro. I think Pingoro is an absolute threat, especially against my team. I really don't have a switch in to a dark move. I actually didn't know that it doesn't get knockoff this generation until I really looked into it. But Pingoro was a major threat as it's able to hit the blade for super effective damage. Pretty much everything on my team gets destroyed by it. So I just had to make sure I had things that could damage it, which luckily it is 4 times weak to fairy. And so you'll see that I brought a little fairy coverage on my team with Mew and also on Claydol. And then I considered Glossopod for revenge killing potential, but I just didn't feel like it had a good enough matchup against Toxapex. I felt like I was forced into running SD, and I just didn't think I had enough turns to set up with Glossopod, especially when it has emergency exit to send it out. Again, my boy Drampa, it continues to impress. Great pick. Thank you, Ball, for waiting on Drampa, because I would hate to see your team get even nastier. But Drampa has been amazing because of its incredible coverage and its ability to tank special hits. It's really able to tank. I've been running a lot of Assault Vest lately, and you'll see when we get to the actual team builder. But Drampa can take all the elemental hits very, very well, resist them with the dragon typing. Also, being normal type in this format when ghost types are absolutely incredible. By the way, Gengar is a free agent right now. I do not know how Gengar is a free agent. I think Gengar is so good, unbelievable coverage, and it has nasty plot. And like no one has normal types on their teams, or I guess I haven't really looked, but I'm lucky I have two. But I think ghost types are incredible. I think Gengar is actually a steal that's still available in Tier 1. But that's besides the point. Honestly, this is how I went to look at Magnus's team, and you will look what I failed to do. And now that we're in week 3, I'm going to start doing it. But looking at the games played column and just trying to pick up on any tendencies on players is definitely something I'm looking into. I made sure to watch all of Magnus's games as well. And I'll start watching most of the teams I face, the games, and kind of get a feel for how they're playing this year with their specific team. But one thing I shouldn't ignore here is, what is Magnus getting kills with? Flygon and Rotom Heat. Flygon I definitely had to respect, especially I lost my prep battle to Flygon because it Dragon Danced on me and murdered me. So I had to make a few changes to my team in prep. But Rotom Heat, he brought choice specs before, and guess what? He's going to bring it again. It was actually just a huge threat. Luckily, honestly, when we get into the game, we'll see exactly what happens. But I got bailed out by basically this one thing. He has one spinner, and I don't think he has a single defogger. That played a huge role in this game, and something that I really wanted to take advantage of early in the game as well. So let's clear the screen. Let's go to the team builder and see exactly what we brought. So looking at the team builder, Jolteon, Claydol, Mew, Doublade, Drampa, and my favorite Mon, which I did get rid of for Dottler, Gloom. Gloom actually put in some work this game. So let's start from the top. I did put in Jolteon first. I just recognized the speed was too crazy to ignore that advantage, and I did run it pretty slow. Actually, Raichu would have outsped me if it was max speed, and I will see in the game. I almost choked the game if Raichu was max speed, but luckily Magnus did speed creep as I did as well. My one tech for my Raichu set was definitely the Absorb Bulb. I figured I could switch it in on the Toxapex and get a +1, as if I had choice specs, but be able to choose my moves. And then with Substitute, I had it EV'd so that I could always live a Scald from Toxapex. And so the goal was to get Jolteon in at +1 and start setting off Shadow Balls versus everything, as that hit everything basically on the team. Electro Ball was definitely my underrated move, and in conjunction with bringing Drampa's Glare here, I figured I could get things to be much slower, and when running Kelks, it helped my team out a bunch with Electro Ball, or it made things interesting, we'll say, because if we go back to Magnus's team with Electro Ball, and his team, I wish I had it organized in speed tiers, but here's a 60, 35, Bronzong's 33, 58, 60. If I was able to get a paralysis on these 60 Mons, my Electro Ball started doing crazy damage, especially to Eldegoss. If I get a paralysis off on Eldegoss, and Eldegoss has a ton of Spadef, I was able to get my calc all the way into the high 40s and low 50s, which was pretty incredible without any boost at all. And so that's kind of what I was going for. It was kind of a shot in the dark, but the real reason was Electro Ball could OHKO Toxapex, whereas Thunderbolt could almost never OHKO Toxapex. And so I wanted to be able to surprise him if he wanted to tank an electric move with Toxapex. Although I was going to substitute almost every single time, hopefully on a Baneful Bunker, but he never showed Baneful Bunker in the game. So let's go back. I know I'm talking quite a bit. Always remember you can fast forward a little bit to get me talking a little bit faster. So Jolteon, pretty cool set. Absorb Bulb. Jolteon is just a mon where you really got to get creative because there's literally no coverage with the Pokemon. And so outside of Electric and Shadow Ball, it does get Hyper Voice, which is interesting. It does get Stored Power. But those are just very, very difficult to pull off, although I'm sure I will try in the future to try to pull it off. Claydol, again, really the glue of my team. I really feel like I have to bring it every week. I think it's a good mon. It's not, it doesn't do anything super exciting. So again, Claydol, my spinner to prevent rocks from his side. Also putting up rocks was pretty important. And you'll see was actually the reason I won the game, as it was able to hit Rotom Heat. And then last second, I actually did not think I was going to bring Ice Beam on Claydol, but in my preparation, I lost to Flygon, D-Dance Flygon, and I didn't have anything to hit it. I had Psyshock before because I wanted to hit Poltergeist harder, as Poltergeist, especially defensively, is actually pretty bulky, but physically is not. And Psyshock was hitting things pretty well, but I decided I was just going to go all for the coverage, Dazzling Gleam to hit the big threat in Pangoro. Okay, Pangoro, and then also as that would do with my special attack investment, if I had a round of spikes up, I would OHKO Pangoro. Pangoro, I didn't have any switches in, so I needed some way to kill it. That's why I wound up going with. I did have defensive Claydol before I had a speedy offensive one. And basically what it comes down to is whether I'm defensive or not, Claydol only takes like 2 hits against strong attackers anyways. And so especially with Dark being a decent coverage move, it winds up getting hit super effectively quite a bit. But Claydol did really well this game. I was pretty excited about what it was able to do. The Mew set, I think I would change in hindsight. I don't think I needed, like, the EVs I did not like. The EVs, I wanted to make sure I killed that. I keep forgetting the dang Pokemon's name. I wanted to make sure I killed the dang Pangoro. As I was super afraid of that Pokemon. But I didn't need to be modest at max special attack to do so. I should have dropped that down so I was able to hit coverage. The real thing I needed Mew for was to set up spikes. And originally I did have Nasty Plot, and that's why I just forgot to change the EVs because I had Nasty Plot instead. But I decided that my sweeping potential with a few of his fast mons, Exceligor, Raichu, Flygon potentially being Choice Scarfed, and Rotom H potentially being Choice Scarfed. Also Poltergeist. I mean, honestly, you could have Choice Scarfed any of them. What I should have done is made a defensive one, I think, and stack the spikes and been able to survive, especially a Specs overheat. And we'll see that in the future here. Doublade, I felt like I was forced to bring against his Poltergeist as that was too big of a threat. And it just gave me an easy out versus it. Also a cleaner late game once I got a Sword Dance up. I was leaning toward that as my end game. Especially with Jolteon, I just needed to get some damage off and I was going to be just fine. Then Drampa, again, I figured I could substitute on his Toxapex and take advantage of it and paralyze it to keep on sending off Hyper Voice. Hyper Voice, I believe, did about 40%, like 40 to 50% against Toxapex, but with that glare up, I could pretty easily 1v1 it, or I could fish for Spadef drops with Shadow Ball. So I was pretty confident in the Drampa set. The glare, honestly, I knew I had all the coverage I needed with Shadow Ball Hyper Voice, and so instead of opting for another super effective move, I knew that Glare could just provide a little bit of utility against certain Mons, especially off the switch. So just fishing for a couple of paralysis, especially if I was able to hit the Flygon, that would have been amazing. Anyways, Gloom honestly pieced this team together this week because of its ability to just wall a bunch of Pokemon. With Eviolite, Gloom is able to basically take almost any special hit. Even the Mystical Fire from a defensive Sylveon only did like 30% to Gloom. And the Hyper Voice in the game, it only took like 12%. I was just blown away. The bad thing about Gloom is offensively, it's pretty poor. So I figured, why bring an offensive move when I can just leech seed things, toxic things, or put them to sleep? Honestly, Sleep Powder was only for Toxapex, as I literally couldn't do anything to Toxapex worthwhile. But it wound up working in the game. So let's move on to the game. Enough of the waiting around. Sorry, it's taking forever. Let's see. Oh, I don't even have it pulled up. So let's pull it up quick. Here's the ranking. I'll just comment on that really quickly. I think it's super, super difficult to rank the league. I think the top 7 are very, very all good teams. I think Henrik is the most disrespected team. Henrik and Prisley just haven't beaten anyone yet. That's the only reason I put them down at 6 and 7. And then I think Yeezus, who I play very, very soon, tomorrow, we'll see exactly what he's made out of. I think we should be on the lookout for Sturkkules or Nido Knight, as he used to be named. I think his team is pretty solid and could make a run. Same with Bindalin. And then obviously everyone's a threat every week. You can't take anyone for granted, or else you'll wind up with a loss. For example, I have never beat Abird by more than 1. I've always beat him 1-0 in the 3 times we've played, and it's always scary every single time I play him. So you got to make sure to bring your A game every single week in this league, and I think that's what makes the National Draft League super, super fun. Super fun league to play in. So let's go to replays, and let's go. There we go. All right. Turn the music off, and we'll just let her play. I'll try not to pause it too much. Right off the bat, I was really hoping he wasn't choice specs. I didn't even calc if it would kill me in one shot. It probably did, since he killed me from 88%. I was wondering exactly what he was fishing for with the burn, because he does go for a Will-O-Wisp here. I decided to just go for spikes. I thought about switching out into my Drampa, as that would have only taken what I thought would be like 25%, but he was choice spec, so it actually took like 35 or 40. But he went for the burn. Luckily, he is locked in, and so he has to switch. I was a little bit nervous, so I believe I wound up switching as well to start. He could have been pretty scared of a physical Mew set, as Mew does get Dragon Dance now, and I can pretty much bring that every single week, as Mew has all the coverage you'd ever want in the entire world. But regardless, here I make a mistake. I decide to, so I switch out. I set up my spike. I get burned. I switch to Drampa because I'm expecting the overheat, which is fine. And I'm able to catch him in on his Bronzong, which I do have a Shadow Ball. I do not want to get hit by any status. I did want to get my sub up in case he didn't go into Sylveon and didn't want to risk getting hit by something. Hyper Voice would have been a better play here, assuming that he was going to switch out, but he could have gone for the Shadow Ball. Or excuse me, not the Shadow Ball. He could have gone for Rocks right away. So either I think attacking was actually a better play than subbing up here, but it was fine. It worked out in the end. Hyper Voice would have been nice because it would have done about 30 to 40%. Just a little chip on that Sylveon. But I bring out the Gloom, who is my switch into Sylveon, which was just huge in this game. So I was able to Leech Seed, because I didn't want to go for the Toxic and not get anything out of the turn. Then I'm able to do just as I planned, go for my Sleep, and get my Mew back in against his Rotom Heat. Now, again, I'm wondering if I'm going to die at 88%. I thought I'd live, but this is where I find out he's actually Choice Scarf. So with 2 spikes up, I'm feeling okay. I think I bring in Claydol here to get up Rocks, as I didn't think he would go for another Overheat. I'm able to bring back Drampa, and this really did stink. Plays super clever with his Bronzong. He's brought Trick Bronzong multiple times now. But he's able to lock my Drampa in, which really, really stinks, as Drampa has incredible coverage and is able to basically bring 3 or 4 attacking moves every single week. But it is what it is. Again, I should have attacked the Bronzong, but I go fishing for a paralysis, trying to catch something on the switch. I should have known that rocks would have been a great priority for him, but that's all right. Not the worst play in the world. Here, I really had to think about, and I ran a calc too. Let's see, we go to the next turn. I did run a calc on if I would have SD'd, but defensive Toxapex was just too strong. I couldn't risk getting a burn, as that would have basically made my Deblade useless the rest of the game. And so I just decided not to take the risk. I thought about sword dancing here, and trying to start picking off his Toxapex, as a sword dance Shadow Claw into Shadow Sneak would have killed. So if you would have slept on one turn, I would have only had to risk one burn, but I decided one burn was just too bad for me, not worth the chance. So I go to my Jolteon, which would have activated the Absorb Bulb, which is fine. Instead, I decided to substitute because I didn't want to guess wrong. I looked at Choice Scarf over and over again. I thought it was a really good bring. I just knew that if I got locked into an electric move, I was just in trouble in this game. And so I knew substitute just allowed me to never guess wrong on any of his switches, as Toxapex couldn't break the sub regardless. So able to get some huge chip on the Flygon. And we also get information there that my Jolteon is faster, which is super key for the future, that it's not Choice Scarf. I don't know exactly what he brought. He never sent me the sets, nor did I ask. But I'm assuming that it was Dragon Dance of some sort. I guess it could have been banded, but there's no way to know with the substitute being up there. So he brings in the Sylveon, which I need to get out of dodge, as that's going to bypass my subs. He's able to wish, and this is where I was a little bit nervous. With his wish, he's able to kind of wish pass into whatever he wanted. And so I thought I really had to land a Leech Seed at some point, or excuse me, a Toxic on whatever he'd wish pass into, as long as I could get rid of this Bronzong. So I dink around with Gloom just being super annoying. That Strength Stap's actually just such a good move, such a broken move. We're able to whittle it down a little bit, and then I make my double here into Blade, but he makes his double into Rotom Heat. Really nice move by Magnus, which basically makes Drampa take a huge overheat. Like I said, 42%. Jeez, that's just too much. I am at +1 here. Again, Hyper Voice would have made sense, but it could have made sense for him to bring in the Bronzong as well. I decided to switch out back into my Gloom again, and this is where he made an aggressive play, but I think if he would have just healed up his Sylveon, he would have been in a much better position. By getting in his Rotom, he does basically claim a kill here. But I didn't really have a great way to kill the Sylveon. I could Toxicate later, but that was kind of my answer. Gloom could Toxicate, and that was about it. So this was huge because of the Baton Pass and the hazards. Sylveon is basically dead as long as I attack it on its way in, and plus it's really slow. I'm able to basically get rid of that mon. So that was huge. He went for an aggressive play, and he's able to kill my Drampa here. But because Overheat costs him half his special attack, basically I'm able to get in my Claydol and spin away his rocks for free again. I definitely would have took some damage, but it was just seemed like a free rapid spin for me. And getting to +1 with my speed investment, I was at about 360 speed at this point, exactly, and I knew that was faster than Flygon. If he wasn't Choice Scarfed, and we knew he wasn't from earlier. When he brought in his Flygon, basically I knew he was making a bet that either I didn't even think about first impression. Now that I think about it, he could have had him first impression. But basically, he was making a bet saying, "You don't have coverage for me. I'm going to Dragon Dance in your face, and then I'm going to start basically wrecking havoc." Luckily, with my prep, I was able to bring Ice Beam, and this was kind of the turning point in the game. Definitely not over, nowhere near over, but getting rid of his most threatening Mon was just huge for me. Again, bringing in Jolteon, just praying that he would scald there. That would have been awesome. I could have showed off the Absorb Bulb, but instead he hazes, and I don't lose any health. That is super nice for Jolteon. I'm able to just Shadow Ball here. No, I substitute. I always substitute. Yep. And now I'm able to 2-hit KO the Bronzong with Shadow Ball, which is very key, as this thing was super annoying for my Gloom to deal with, as it was able to kind of sit there and just be in front of it. But being able to get off that Shadow Ball and then force the Raichu to come in, then I'm able to bring the Gloom. I'm pretty sure my Gloom always walls his Raichu. He might have had Nasty Plot, but I still don't think he could have done enough. I decided to Leech Seed here for some damage. I could have Toxic, would have really done pretty much the same thing, although you do need to survive in order to get Leech Seed damage off. So Toxic, in hindsight, might have been better, but I wanted to check the Toxapex play just in case. So Claydol comes in, recovers some health, doesn't really matter. Now I have to bring in a Speedy Mon. I thought about giving the kill to Doublade, but Jolteon here has the game. At this point, I may have thrown the game. I was in a little bit of a hurry as I was playing actually at school. But I decided to Shadow Ball here, assuming that my Jolteon would be faster. If his Raichu was like Timid Max Speed, it would have outsped me and killed me with Surf. Luckily, he speed crept probably my Mew so that he could be faster than my Mew, but then my Jolteon would be faster than him in return. So luckily, he speed crept, I speed crept. It's always a mind game when it comes to those things. But basically, I went for the Shadow Ball, and it was a done game. I think I had the guaranteed win if I went to Gloom and Toxicked. And then eventually, even if he Nasty Plotted up and could kill my Gloom, I could have Shadow Snuck with the Blade to potentially finish the Raichu off. But overall, great game. Always a super fun one. I think definitely a playoff team for sure in Magnus. Can't wait to reach there and have another incredible game. It's always clever things coming back and forth between almost everybody in the league. It's such a fun league to be a part of. All right, fellas. Deuces. Hope you enjoyed.